What happens when you finally meet people who inspire you in your chosen profession? Go! Hello and welcome to Fuse, the global podcast for the PRCA, where we explore the evolving landscape of global communications. We bring together leaders from public relations, politics, business, academia, and media to spark new ideas and ignite innovation. My name's Dan Gold, and on today's episode, I meet two people who really do inspire me. Stephen Waddington is a business advisor who helps agencies and communications teams make better decisions. He is a visiting professor at Newcastle University and a PhD research student at Leeds Business School. Stephen has founded and led agencies including Ketchum, Metia, Rainier PR and Speed. He is the former president of the CIPR and the author of several books on public relations theory and practice, including Exploring PR and Management Communication. With over 20 years of experience in helping organizations to articulate their purpose and create value and deliver social impact, Sarah Waddington is really a pioneer of best practice. Her CBE was awarded in June 2021 for services to public relations and the voluntary sectors, and she's also been awarded the CIPR's Sir Stephen Tallents Medal for Exceptional Achievement in PR. Before we go anywhere, it is such an honour to have you both here on Fuse. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for inviting us. Yeah. We're actually in separate buildings. I work from home and I've sent him to the office, so it should all work beautifully and no arguments, hopefully.
Oh, is this a strategy? I like this already. You have been named by many people, and your names in the industry have been synonymous with best practice and strategy and, really helping others. Known in my circle as the PR power couple, how do you make sure that you really protect and forge your own identities? And second part to that, when you're making sure that you protect your own identities and really have your presence individually, how do you then effectively work together?
Should I field that first?
It's couples therapy. First question, we're in couples therapy. Go on, you start, Sarah.
I was going to say that I'm not posh and you're definitely not Beck, so I don't know about power couple, but I appreciate it. Thank you. It's really kind words. That's a really interesting question. But do you know what it is? I don't think there is an issue with us hopefully having our own individual identity, because we are very driven by our own purpose. And actually probably one of the reasons that we first started working together and we kind of matched, there was a kind of meeting of minds, because we're both very driven, we're both very determined, we're both very industry focused and passionate about what we do. And we always want to be better. We push ourselves to be better. And now I've just got somebody else to bully into doing what I want and to push to be better too. So it kind of works really well, both as a working marriage, as a working partnership, and the marriage itself. So it's an interesting one. But the very basic truth is that we're just very boring. We're the people who will cook dinner, and then when we're sitting down, everybody else is talking about nice things or booking a holiday. We're like, ooh, we really need to investigate that latest AI tool. Or he'll say, as we're literally lying to go to sleep, he'll say, oh, we need to do and it's the reality is as simple as that.
Quite dull. Yeah, I've got to build on that. I think we're each other's greatest advocates, but also fiercest critics. So there's a level of scrutiny in the relationship that I've never had. I've worked in numerous professional partnerships. I've never had, and that comes from I think the honesty and openness of our personal relationship, and that always takes us to a better place. So anything I write, of substance. The work I do, the research work I do at Leeds, focused on management, goes through, passes the desk of Sarah from a critical perspective. And it's almost like, having another supervisor on my team, because it just pushes me critically to be better and better. So I think that, ultimately is a good aspect.
I'm brutal, though, aren't I?
You are brutal, yeah. I only have a
check,
tantrum once.
He's not done a spell check, and he's at least passed it through once. So I can't be bothered. I'm like, I just go straight back. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. Send it to me when it's legible. But it's good, right?
When it comes to the give and take of relationships, when it comes to that drawing of the line, and it sounds to me, number one, you guys get on, but number two, you've got an immense sense of respect for each other, because you can only push those boundaries when you truly respect each other, because otherwise the dynamic would break down incredibly quickly. And look, we all need a timeout once in a while, whether it's a professional working relationship or you just got to take the dog for a walk, whatever it may be. It's that coming together afterwards and going, okay, I've had a breather. Let's look at that next bit and maybe I can help you on this. Or, I thought this was going to be the best thing in the world and you've kind of shot it down. But actually you've got a point, the way we've said it. And there's a dynamic that we have in personal relationships, which outside of the workplace gives us that little additional bit of license, because it's done with that. I believe that extra level of empathy and respect, because you see what the other person's going through, not just in the 9 to 5 and all those crazy extra hours that PR professionals do, but it's those moments. Sometimes people go into the office and you have a rough interaction with someone and it's like, well, why is that happening? And the walls go up. But actually, because you know what's happening in the other person's life so intimately, there's that, again, I'll lean on the empathy word, because you get it.
Yeah, we catch each other.
Yeah,
we catch each other when that's the case. I mean, I think the other thing is that's really important. We both have very, very much shared values, and we very much have a shared vision for our industry. We've worked in it long enough. We've been close enough to the data. We've done our bits. We've built different things. We've staged private interventions. It's all about how can we be better and how can we help others be better. So leaving that ladder down, and because that's always what we're focused on, often we might come at something from a different perspective, but there's always that meet in the middle bit. And I think if we didn't have that shared vision, things could be quite different. But, we've got a lot of commonality in that respect.
In that sense of having a shared vision, what was the last thing you disagreed on, and how did you get to the middle ground of one or other of you being right?
This isn't in the script. I'm sorry.
No, what usually happens is something comes up.
Sarah says how it's going to be.
I suggest how it's going to be. He tries to compromise, and then we go with whatever I would like.
Which is the right answer.
Yeah. No, but what did we disagree on last? Probably we've just been doing our 2024 business planning like everybody else. And so, budget, what we're going to focus on, what's important, what's the priority, what's our next 3 months look like. I mean, it's quite difficult to predict, 1, 3, 5 year plans, but we're looking at that, and we do a lot of futures and foresight work for clients. So of course we do it for ourselves too. So we've had some robust discussion about that. And Stephen went away just this morning with a new jobs list. But it's all good. No, but we talk about everything. Like you said, if he has to storm out and have a dog walk, or if I go to a combat class, we'll come back and you can then talk about things sensibly. So, find another way to blow off the disagreement.
No, absolutely. So, if there's one thing that I associate with you both from reading what you've written, pieces on social media, when you're speaking and delivering programming, social mobility really comes into the sense of what you do. Why is it important to you, before we get into that space? And I'll start with Stephen on this one.
First reason is it's the right thing by society. I think the research was done originally in the 80s that said if you wanted to run a best practice communication team, public relations team, you needed to represent the public that you were trying to engage with. Here we are, 30, 40 years later, and suddenly we've woken up to this in the industry. D&I initiatives tend to focus initially from the perspective of ethnicity. But, the socio-economic dimension is really important. Why is it important to us particularly? Because we're both from working class backgrounds, both had comprehensive education, both been driven by learning and at various stages during our careers, and education being inspired by people who've pushed us and driven us and now driving each other. And it's part of our payback. We sat there during COVID looking at the industry, and this has been a particular issue of Sarah's in wanting to address since she dug into the data 10 years ago around it, and built this platform called Socially Mobile. And at that point, I'll let Sarah pick up the story.
Yeah, I'm still pained by the idea of the 80s being so far away. I was like 30, 40 years, and actually it's probably true.
Honestly, the piece of work, though, that around D&I is a good thing for society and for communication teams. That was established as absolute fact in the 80s. And here we are talking about it as if it's a contemporary issue we need to address. It's rubbish.
Sadly, it is. I mean, the long and short of it is we know that education is the greatest leveler. And actually, if we unlocked the diversity of teams within organisations, whether it was PR organisation or general business, our economy would be doing an awful lot better. It's the long and short of it. As Stephen says, our backgrounds aren't what people necessarily assume when they meet us now. You tend to get judged on how people find you now. And I got a council grant to go to university. If I hadn't had that, my life now would probably be very, very different. And quite frankly, I'm getting goosebumps because I get really cross. Quite frankly, I believe that when you get to a certain point in the industry and you've got influence, it's your absolute duty of care to look out for other people and to level the playing field for them. Because I know how difficult it is just to get to the starting line for some people. And my background, difficult as it was at times, is certainly not as challenging as some of the people background that we see on Socially Mobile. So, there's a lot of intersectionality. You might get someone who is from a lower socioeconomic background who might also be disabled, or, might be from an underrepresented group, or, there's all sorts of different things. And depending on where you are in terms of place, certain regions aren't as well served as you might be in the capital. And so all these things really impact people's careers. So Socially Mobile, I've been certainly since the last 10 years, and I've been reading about the data, but certainly since 2017-18, when I was in the process of becoming CIPR president and really looking at the data from both the PRCA and the CIPR and more widely in creative industry reports, I just couldn't sit still any longer. And I did actually make some approaches within the industry to see if we could get something off the ground, and got knocked back, which was probably in retrospect a really good thing, because it just made me absolutely more mad and more determined. And then Stephen got the brunt of it, where we spent loads of weekends where the kids had to hang around while we had Post-its all over the house of what the syllabus might look like and how it was going to work. And you know what? It was good. And it was good that COVID hit, because we had a completely different business model for the initial concept. And what we've settled on now has been a brilliant mechanism for helping people. And it's absolutely right at the right time.
So the PRCA's own data from its censuses puts the number of people in the industry around 100,000. It depends how you classify it, but it's around 100,000 people. A fifth of those, 20%, and this is the metric we typically measure socioeconomic diversity from, through the lens of whether you attended a fee-paying school or not. So 20% of people responding to the PRCA census in 2021 attended a fee-paying school. That's versus 7% in the population as a whole in the UK. That gap alone in the public relations industry, you do the maths, but it's around 13,000 people we're missing. So the data plainly speaks for itself.
It just means that unless you've got some wealth behind you and you've got networks, you just can't get into the industry, let alone get ahead. And we're finding a lot. There was a reason why Socially Mobile, we don't ask for any formal education. We ask for 2 years of tactical experience. we want to help the people who are just stuck. They're stuck in their role or in their job, and they can't get into a strategic, more managerial position, which would increase their earning potential. So ultimately, for those who are listening who haven't heard about Socially Mobile, it's a 10-week online training course, which has been likened to an SAS course by
someone from the military, as we said.
It's not meant to be easy, but we move people from being really competent practitioners to a place where they can go and they can look at things from an organizational perspective, and they have better leadership skills, better strategic skills, have a handle on finance, and all the things that you'd expect with management competencies.
I find this fascinating because just looking at my journey, and I can only speak of my journey, I've not lived anyone else's life. I was born in the south of England. I went to a comprehensive school. I tried my hardest, but what would now be diagnosed as being neurodivergent is, I was categorized as dyslexic because there wasn't really a space for what I actually was. And then that was a barrier for me to go to university because the support and the programming wasn't in place. And I'm so thankful that for many establishments they really are now. And then when I started applying to organizations in our sector, it was like, what's your degree? What's your degree? What's your degree? And it was such a barrier. But I was so thankful because I was coming from a broadcast background that people knew me from, the media relations side. And I came in through that direction. I did the classic dark side slide. And then when I did come in, ended up working with all of the majors, build those interpersonal connections. And I couldn't be more thankful that when people just got to know me and didn't look at paper, which was my barrier, that we actually achieved great things. And now I work on the other side of a planet running something that's pretty cool. So I'm thankful that there were a few people who were willing to see what I was like tactically that then got me into the position of being more strategic. So I love what you're doing.
Dan, 3 points on that there, and I'm really glad that you got the break because it is really difficult. But again, you had to rely on network, and so one of the things we tried to address is to create a community and a network for our socially mobile alumni, because a lot of them just don't have that or don't have the confidence to engage with people. They're more than capable. These are, people who have had success, but they don't see it in terms of their success. They see it as relative, and so they don't reach out. And so one of the things I love to see is when our students are brave enough to start to interact with people, and then all of a sudden it becomes a snowball. It's wonderful, and that's just fantastic. And we've worked really hard as well to make sure the course is as neurodivergent friendly as can be. Now that's difficult because it's so very individual, but we try to do everything we can and to make sure that if a student is prepared to share any particular needs, that we accommodate them. And I think that's really important. But what your experience has illustrated so beautifully is, I think, the one bit where the industry is still failing. And for me, the big long-term solution is we need the industry bodies to do more and more consistently in terms of opening access to the industry. And that requires every single PR employer to think differently too. So not to think about education necessarily, or certainly that 2-1 from the Russell Group, and maybe to do a bit of blind recruitment. But for me, it's about, if you're recruiting people, a different talent pool, what does that look like if you're taking someone at 16 from school? Yes, that's going to take a completely different way of thinking about how you recruit and how you retain people. Yes, it's going to cost you a little bit more up front because you're going to have to develop a training program. But all these things really, really matter. And at the moment, we have an apprenticeship scheme through the PRCA, which is great. There are bits and bobs of different initiatives happening. When I was CIPR president, we joined up with PRCA and Career Ready to get career advice into schools and to offer internships to schools in disadvantaged areas. But that ran for a year. It doesn't work on a short-term basis. This needs to be something we completely invest in wholeheartedly and continually.
So the lovely thing about your story, Dan, is that every student who joins the program has a story like that, and we share those through impact reporting. The crazy thing is about within our industry. And Sarah's described there's various private interventions, there's industry interventions, but there's no grand strategy for the industry to solve this problem. At the same time, employers, agency and in-house bemoan the lack of talent and is struggling to recruit. We've got a particular issue at the moment because of COVID. A sort of account manager, communication manager level within the industry, because there wasn't the opportunity for tacit learning, or these people just weren't recruited in 2020. So there needs to be we need to stop fiddling and do some sort of grand strategy for the industry. And I think that has to come from government or industry associations.
Just some strategic longer term thinking would help, not just being reactive, that you either lose someone or someone goes off on long term sick, or you win a piece of business, so all of a sudden the knee jerk reaction is to hire. I totally appreciate the commercial balance that you've got in terms of when to recruit. But actually, if you're continually building relationships with communities, and that includes minority ethnic communities or whoever it is that you would like to be as part of your representative workforce, that shouldn't just be a thing that you do when you have need. That's very cynical. We work really hard at Socially Mobile to try and keep in contact with our different communities, with people that we believe, could benefit or might be able to help signpost people to us, and vice versa. We want this to be a starting block. So when people come out, they're then thinking about the next thing, and we can say, did you know this might be suitable for you next? There's just such a short-termism that, and when I'm having a bad day, really turns me sour, but then Stephen has to pick me up, and then vice versa. But actually, it's what's nice is that the response to Socially Mobile has been so positive, and the will is there. And actually, the generation of talent that's coming out, I'm heartened by every week, because I know that they're the ones who will do things differently, because they are going to be the different face of our industry, and that's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah, they're also tremendous advocates. So having been through the program, something happens during the program, so to naturally build skills. But Sarah's talked about the cultural aspect as well, and that's really, really important. So everyone gains in confidence, and you can see them just grow on social media as they become braver and bolder in sharing their ideas. And now we're at the point where hopefully by the end of the year we'll graduate our 100th graduate, and whenever now Sarah or I share anything about the program, you'll notice all our graduates pile in, and they're incredibly generous in guiding other people to the program. So.
When it comes to technology, one of the things that we have experienced is that revolution in just such a short period of time. We've seen generative AI really bringing something different to the table. And I will say, purely on my journey, and believe me, this isn't all about me, but it's just my perspective. The tools that it's given me to break through sometimes the word blindness that I get, or get through those moments where the idea just isn't there, to be able to effectively what I call brain fart into a keyboard, and then suddenly it spurs me into that next step. How do you feel that generative AI tools have changed the game in some way? And are there AI tools beyond generative that you've seen that are really there, not only helping people, but helping the industry think differently?
What I would say about that is, do you know what's been beautiful? I'm not massively technically minded, but one of the things that has been really inspiring has been watching our Socially Mobile students, because they've got a dedicated community and Guild. So thanks to Guild for that, because they grant us that. That's part of their give back, and it's a really valuable safe space for students. But they talk about the issues they face, like the challenges that you've mentioned, and they talk about what tools they use, and it is quite incredible about how they have very quickly adopted and adapted their practice because of the tools that are on the market. Now, I'm going to give a quick plug, because we've just, through Future Proof, published a new book which has a whole raft of AI tools that can be used within the PR industry. And we will be releasing a chapter per month on the blog free of charge, because at the moment it's on Amazon, so there's a charge. Say that again, sorry, Steve?
Per day, from
per day, yeah. So there'll be a chapter a day, so it will be accessible to everybody. But I think what's been really good is to see that this new generation of tools, while we have to be careful and ethically minded about how they're used, is actually showing that they can be a game changer for practitioners. Steve, I know you have much more to say on that.
So, yeah, if anyone has any neurodiversity issues related to writing, so dyslexia or so forth, now, the basic tools within any word processor will provide huge support with that in terms of helping you, effectively proofread a piece of copy. I mean, the latest version of Word will even read it to you and spot out any or call out any issues. And, then there's a whole range of tools on top of that, such as Grammarly, that will help you with style and so forth. So, yeah, it's a huge leveler in that sense. We're only just starting. I mean, ChatGPT is a year old, right? So we're only just starting to see the impact, really, of the potential of this type of technology. And yeah, from a brainstorming, content creative perspective, if you want to produce the first draft of anything, it seems to be hugely beneficial. Have to say, we've done a lot of experiments with it, working with clients as well. And often the content or the quality is quite low. So, it's not without issues. It will make stuff up. Even when you feed, ChatGPT or Claude from Anthropic, even when you feed it with a data set, it will make stuff up if it isn't able to find the right answer for you. So that's a big concern. So it's not without its issues. You focus on, as many people do, on generative AI. I think reductive AI is where the real power of this technology lies, and that sees its application in management, in helping us make understand large data sets, whether they be an Excel spreadsheet or a document, and we've done some terrific work in summarization, feeding Claude or ChatGPT 80-page policy document and querying it and asking it for the key arguments, the key weaknesses, red teaming it, asking it from different for different stakeholder perspectives, how you'd undermine it if you wanted to criticize the document. And it can be incredibly powerful from that perspective and quick. And that's the speed of it is incredible.
So this is interesting, you say, to do the full 360 on the conversation. He's like a proper tinkerer. So he will tinkerer. That's so Geordie. But basically, it's true though, isn't it? Any tool will come out, I'll have a little play. I'm like that. Do you know what? Everybody else needs to go and tinker with that. Some big tool, some big system will come and absorb that. Yeah, I'll come back in 9 months' time and there's a nice little package for me. But he'll have been through every single one of them, and it works really, really well.
I think that from what I've seen, when we've put in documents, I spoke to my friend who works for, who's a representative of a union, and they put in a CBA into ChatGPT, and they queried it and they threw different scenarios at it, and it was really fascinating because the speed it was coming to conclusions based on that single source of information. It was kind of that 99%, but it needed that 1% of context. And I think that next space, this next generation will be, I'd love it to say, I don't know, or I need more information to contextualize this, that flag that's needed. Because what we were talking about was, yes, it's fantastic. We're a year in. Yes, machine learning's been running for a very long time, and many people don't realize that. When I was working in med tech, the starts, and that's many, many years ago, the starts of that learning was going there with the universities doing incredible work. But that bit, the human bit, where hopefully we all get to the point of going, I don't know. I think that's the piece that the AI space still needs before we go off a cliff with, okay, it's right, clearly it's technology, let's go with it. Rubbish in, rubbish out. We all know that one.
So, Dan, very good point, well made. These machines don't have emotional intelligence, and that's the line between human sense.
Neither do loads of people I know.
Granted. Fair enough.
Oh, you've made me cry a little bit. It's so true. So from Socially Mobile, do you have any graduates who've been through any, could you speak to me about any Socially Mobile graduates who've been on a journey, who've really been able to go from one, from where they started to their outcomes, and maybe what does it, one that includes how AI has helped them?
I hadn't thought about the AI angle, but the immediate one that comes to mind is we got an email from a graduate who emailed to say, I just wanted to thank you because I managed to get a new job and I've been able to come off universal credit. And now my kids and I, can just afford to do a little bit more, and it's completely changed our life. So that's aside to the tool element, but that's the kind of outcomes that we're getting. Now, we're not trying to get everybody to change jobs, and that's not what everybody's goal is. It could be that they just need to improve their confidence, improve their skill set, look for promotion internally, or they might have long-term goals to set up their own business. Perhaps they do want to move job, but so we try and help people in the best way they can. But the outcomes have been superb. I do know we had a lady who was neurodivergent, and she uses a number of different tools, and she's now moved into a new job. And we had a gentleman with a disability similarly who started to use different tools, built himself a kind of tool stack to help him, because he's really struggled to maintain employment. But that's the way that he's been going to demonstrate how he can compete in the workplace.
Yeah, we have to be a little bit careful with specific cases because of privacy, but we report on our progress annually, and the last impact report published in March for the first 50 students from 2022 suggested that a quarter of them had graduated and got a new role or promotion, increasing their earning potential, which is, ultimately the goal. So we're absolute in tracking the progress of students. Yeah.
You've just kind of got into a space. I'm currently working on an impact report, and there's certainly a big space where lots of organizations have the opportunity to crow about what they're doing and really, really bang the drum for themselves. But objectivity clearly matters. It's critical, and really taking that honest look on your organization. When you're producing an impact report, do you think that there's an element that third-party review really matters? Because sometimes when we self-report, there's that risk that we can bang our drum without listening to those who we feel we're benefiting, without having their voice in it.
So Dan, good point. Very, very good point, especially in this era of ESG where organizations, as you suggest, are marking their own homework and taking a favorable perspective. I'd say in the case of Socially Mobile, it's community interest companies. So, the governance is set out in law. We are held to account by a board, a group of individuals who ultimately scrutinize our work. And then
we have a steering group, don't we?
And then there are a series of communities around the organization, the assessors who assess people coming onto the program for fit, and then the examiners who mark the homework, the coursework along the way. That group numbers around 60 people. They are our critics and are, if you like, callers to our account. And, we
checks and balances.
I can certainly tell you there can be no bullshit with any of them, because they especially the examiners, they are robust. They take a pride in what they do and what they're contributing to, because, almost everyone works voluntarily for the community interest program, apart from we have a program manager who's paid. But it's a valid point, and we've thought really hard about that.
I'm going to shift us ever so slightly. Your footprints kind of bring us together with CIPR and PRCA, two very strong representative bodies, two bodies that have historically challenged for a very similar space, and at the same time have also, through strong leadership, have collaborated and looked at that space to benefit all. If I could start with this question, what are your thoughts on the trade bodies and really helping the industry move forwards?
Yeah, my view on membership of any body is that you've got to be very strategic and commercial in how you approach it. If people talk a lot about value for money, but you have to want to get something out of it to get the best. The more you put in, the more you get out, is what I say. It's a bit like a gym membership. You're not going to get value if you don't tip up and go and do your spin class in the morning. You're just going to get fat and lazy. It's true though. So my view is that you need to decide why you're joining it and what your vision is. And is it for personal development? Is it commercial development? Because that will change how you interact. The CIPR, for example, when I first set my business up way back in 2009, that was because partly I wanted to build my network outside the region, but secondly, it offered a legal helpline that I knew just by way of membership. If I had an employment issue, I could call it. And so that immediately, cancelled out any legal costs that I would otherwise have had. That was a big, big benefit for me. And so that you have to think about what is it you need and what will, as you say, take you forward, either as you as an individual or your business. And if it's about talent acquisition, how do you get involved? If it's about your own professional development and you're like us and a bit nerdy and interested in the future of the industry and want to be part of the what next, is it that you need to join one of the panels or even form one of the panels? So they are really important roles. But the one thing that any organisation, any membership organisation has to be very considerate of is not to lose sight of who they're there to serve, and also what is coming around the corner. Because membership bodies, and I'm also, I should say, I'm an ambassador for the Institute of Directors. I'm on the interim management board for the PRCA. You know that we've both served as past presidents for the CIPR. That they do go through a life cycle, and it gets a bit bumpy way, depending on what the strategic vision is and how good the people at the helm are. It can nosedive quite quickly when there seems to be an element of complacency sinks in. Now, we're not there at the moment, but we've got to be very considerate of that. And if you're an industry leader and you think you've got something to give, do get involved. As I always say, don't just carp by the sidelines. Get in there and help clean it up.
So during this conversation, we've talked about some big structural issues within our profession. Not least talent, alignment with management, our own reputation, professional development. These are big issues that no one individual within the industry can solve. We do our bit through various different initiatives that are aligned to our own personal values. There is an absolute requirement for an industry association and a professional association. There's some big structural issues and challenges we need to address to grow the profession and elevate it within management. This constant discussion about whether, and it's gone quiet at the moment, but whether there should only be one, I think is a bit of a zero-sum game. There's room for as many organisations as are aligned to the challenges of the industry, as long as they're facing in the right direction. I think we've got a particular issue at the moment with representation and engagement with government, but our government has its own challenges there. I'd like to see more effort there, and I'd like to see more effort around us being raised within management. And that's where I'm focused.
The value to business, yeah. Oh, look at that! We completely agreed on something, Stephen.
Can you edit that out, please?
When it comes to social mobility, do you think that there's not only a responsibility from the organizations, but also a sense of an opportunity because of their connective tissue and the way that they truly do interconnect into organizations to advocate for those who are not having the opportunities that could be in front of them, to be an industry voice, to say, hey, with the right support within your organization, you could help, bring people along on their journey to break through those glass ceilings, to get to that next level, to really, rather than, hire cycle every time there's a contract, but really bring people on. So it brings what you've said together. But at the same time, do we need more from the associations?
Leading question, Dan, but the answer is yes. Of course it is.
I'd like to see more role models.
Can we interview you because you give good quotes?
I was just going to say that, remember when we first launched Socially Mobile, and you talked about how you hadn't really talked about your own career path and your background, and how courageous there is an element of courage that comes with the vulnerability that's needed to talk about the stories. And the number of people we had separately, privately say, just so you know, I would like to support because this is my story, but I don't want it to be public. We've got to get over that.
Still happens.
There is no shame attached to being from somewhere where you did not have the advantage of other people. In fact, you're more of a success story than those people have made it on the back of the wealth and the comfort that they had. And we've just got to change the narrative on that. So in short, as Stephen says, yes, we need to do more. Again, back to recruitment and procurement, we need to think about how we bring people in. If that's a 16-year-old white lad who's left school, at 16, we need to think about what that looks like, and really find some ways of helping organisations change their whole practice around recruitment, training, and retention.
So 100,000 people in our profession. We are training through apprenticeships around 300 a year. It's barely touching the sides. We're we're addressing that mid-career aspect. We need more scale there too. We're doing as much as we can through Socially Mobile, but those two intervention points are really, really important. As you suggest, I was a bit flippant, but as you suggest, Dan, the industry bodies and associations have the scale to make difference and affect change. It would make sense for them to be part of that action. I have to say, from Socially Mobile perspective, the CIPR and the PRCA are both huge supporters of what we do.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
Yeah, they offer membership to all our graduates. Sorry, our graduates that are
the fully funded graduates. So we have a number. So you can actually, it's a bit like the Thomas program, where you buy a pair of shoes and someone gets one who needs them. Basically we do offer paid places. So either people can buy their own or their employers can sponsor them, $6.95 a place. And basically that helps make the CIC, the community interest company, sustainable, but it also enables somebody else to get a place. But we do offer a significant number of fully funded places to those who are deserving every year. And what happens is anybody who's fully funded, when they graduate, they get membership with the PRCA and the CIPR for a year. And we also have wonderful support from AMEC, who offer everybody access to their foundation and measurement program. And that's massive, because that's like a really important, planning and insight and measurement is how we're going to speak management language. So it's a perfect next step for people who've managed to come off the 10-week program and want to continue learning.
Final point here, I think, and I think we both found this as when we served as presidents of the CIPR. You're in for a year, and these challenges are taking these issues that we're talking about are generational issues. So there's if I were to criticize the CIPR and the PRCA, you need a strategy that's focused on 10 or 20 years, not a year, because you can't affect the change that's needed in that time. It's going to take generations.
When it comes to things that inspire you, or sources of media that you consume, or maybe it's a podcast, maybe it's the arts, prose, literature, whatever it is, what do you really consume that inspires you, informs you, and makes you think, that feels better? Often we look at content as what I gain from it in terms of intellectually or in terms of latest information. What makes you feel good as content that you consume?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So I read a heap of The Guardian. I'm quite lefty in views. It won't surprise anybody. I share lots of its content. Do I feel great about it a lot of the time? Not. But it does give me views on what's going on out there, outside in the world, that kind of do align a little bit more with mine and my values. I am in the process of becoming a professional coach as well. And actually, a lot of the reading that they ask you to do around that is really, really great. And that makes you feel good, actually. And you realize how much good coaching practice can impact you, not just within the workplace, but in your entire life. So there's a very famous book you may have heard of called by Stephen Covey, and it's the 7 Habits. I always call it 7 Habits, but it has got a longer title. But if you were to Google it, you would find it. And they've got a version as well that his son brought out, which is the 7 Habits of Effective Teenagers. And it's just about how the paradigm through which you see life. And it challenges you to think outside of those and really challenge your values and what matters to you. And I literally had an aha moment. I've actually now got it on so I can listen to it on Audible when I'm walking the dog as well. And I often go back to it because I do find it very affirming, and it really makes me think differently and stop me reverting back to old habits. So for me, that has been something that's been, I feel like I've become a better person because of this professional journey I've gone on, but I can see myself parenting better too, and being a better wife and being a better sister and a better daughter. And that's, what a fantastic unintended consequence.
Sarah and Stephen, thank you so much for joining us here on Fuse. If people want to find out more information and how to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
So I'm at Mrs_Wads on X, formerly known as Twitter. But we've also got the wads.co.uk website where you'll find out all about us. If you want help with your company direction, you want some coaching, or you want to know about Socially Mobile, you can also go to the Socially Mobile website too, which is sociallymobile.org.uk, and take a good look. We're taking applications at the moment for our cohorts next year.
If you find Sarah, you'll find me.
He's just at Wads. Very easy. At Wads and at Mrs_Wads. Can't go far wrong, really.
Thank you, Sarah and Stephen, so much for joining us here on Fuse, and thank you to you. You'll find this episode and many others on the PRCA's YouTube channel, iHeartRadio podcast list, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever you choose to download your podcasts. Everything is linked from prca.org.uk, and alongside myself, Farzana Badwell has done a number of incredible interviews with guests here on Fuse. If you do like what you hear, please do share this so we can grow our community. And if you have feedback or topics that you would like us to cover, then do get in touch. The information is there in the show notes. We publish interviews every 2 weeks, so please stay tuned as we have some very inspiring stories in the pipeline.